So if we get your attention, please, we'll call our meeting to order. Ready for pledge, aren't you? So first, we'll ask for additions or deletions to the agenda. Are there any? Okay, nothing there. Next up, roll call. Correct? Okay. Pledge of Allegiance. So if everyone please rise and join us in the pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, thank you. Thank you, everyone. Rolling on down, the approval of the minutes, we'll entertain a motion for the approval of the April 12, 2022 regular meeting minutes. Your pleasure.
Move approval.
Support. Motion support, or any comments, questions, additions, or deletions? Hearing none, all those in favor would be yes?
Yes.
Any opposed, no? Motion is carried, thank you. Next item is B, communications. We are to receive a communication from Mr. Doug Yarnell regarding interim city manager position.
Move to receive.
Support.
Have motion support, any comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor would be yes?
Yes.
Any opposed, no? We have received communications. Thank you, Mr. Yarnell. Moving to hearings, we need to set a public hearing for Tuesday, May 10th, 2022 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the agenda will allow to consider a special assessment roll for the unpaid charges for noxious weed cutting, sidewalk replacement, and utility billing charges for 2021. Your pleasure.
Move to set the hearing.
Support.
Okay, we have a motion and support. Comments or questions? Hearing none. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. The motion is carried. Thank you. Next up, hold a public hearing for April 24, 2022 at 6 p.m. or as soon thereafter as the agenda allows for review of an application to transfer an industrial facilities exemption certificate for 250 Adams Street from Shiloh Diecast Midwest LLC to Aludyne North America LLC. Your pleasure. And I hope I didn't butcher that too bad.
Move to open public training.
Support.
Okay, we got motion support. Anybody else? No comments, questions? All those in favor be yes?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, the hearing is open. Thank you. So are you,
Yep, I can
taking the lead on
Yep.
this?
This is a simple transfer of the IFT that we approved back in 2018. The value of that IFT was for $410,000. It was for a project when they, Shiloh at the time, expanded their building of a new construction of a 50 by 120 foot pre-engineered steel building for expansion of their process facility there. The new Aludyne is now the new owner of that equipment and that process, and they, obviously from their accounting standpoint, having the exemption transferred to their name would be beneficial. So they're asking for our permission to proceed with that request.
So this is no change in the life of the exemption?
The life of the
Well,
exemption.
Transfer of
It's just-
ownership.
It's just this simple transfer? Okay.
Yes. Yep.
What does Aludyne do? Do you know?
It's aluminum. They're aluminum car parts.
Aluminum car parts?
Yes.
Okay.
Yep. That's all.
Presumably die-cast.
Diecast.
Diecast.
Yes. Yep.
Similar to Shiloh.
Yep.
Okay. Thank you.
And you mentioned the value of being at 400,000 some change.
Yeah.
That was the value of the equipment, correct? Or
That was the value of
addition-
the that was the value of the
yeah,
addition
right.
because
Not the value of the tax break they got.
now the value of the tax
Value of
base.
the building.
Yeah, the value of the building.
Just to clarify.
Yep. Like we discussed at the last meeting, we were talking about personal property has been taken away as a taxable entity. So yes, it's just on the real property of that $410,000 value of the building that was expanded.
Okay, thank you. Anybody else? Okay, we'll entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
And motion support? Oops. Oh, no, I didn't, I'm sorry. Before we do that, we do need public comments, so.
Oh, yes.
Is there any member of the public that would like to address the commission on this topic, I guess? We're in a hearing, so it'd be only appropriate to comment on this topic in particular. Yes.
Here's your lunch, lad.
plan is.
There better be
a
enough
long
for all of
video.
us.
That doesn't
That's
go
the
in
thing
there.
about this. Okay, it appears to me that no one from the public cares to comment.
I don't think so.
So with that, we'll entertain the motion to close the public hearing, and that, reaffirm that for us, please.
So moved.
Okay, we now have motion support. All those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed? No. We close the public hearing, thank you. I think we're good to go. For resolutions, first up is consideration of a resolution to authorize the transfer of PA 198 Industrial Facilities Tax Exemption Certificate from Shiloh Diecast Midwest LLC to Aludyne North America LLC for 250 Adams Street.
So moved.
Support.
Sounds familiar, doesn't it? Okay, we have a motion support. Last chance for comments or questions. Hearing none. All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed, no. The motion is carried. And the exemption is transferred then. Ordinances. We would like to consider a resolution to introduce ordinance number 826 to amend section 60-77 of the ordinances of the city of Alma relative to conditions for establishing a bed and breakfast facility.
Is this just a general?
This is to approve the introduction. So we're just introducing the ordinance tonight. We're not gonna, we'll take it up at a later meeting, I believe.
But it's just a general ordinance, it's not attached to anything specific, or it might, okay.
So I can
Actually, it's
explain.
the amendment, it's
Well-
the amendment of the current ordinance. We have a bed and breakfast ordinance. The amendment's really just, basically what it does is it requires them to comply with the various codes and statutes. And as opposed to being somewhat specific, the only, I think, substantive change is they were restricted in a sleeping room in the basement. And the way this ordinance would read, on the ground floor, excuse me. The way this ordinance would read, as long as they comply with state codes, they can do it. And so, because
Fire
obviously,
codes,
right. yeah.
Fire codes, building codes, whatever other codes apply.
Correct. And the bed and breakfast.
In addition to our
statute,
local
there's-
ordinances that might apply.
True.
So,
Thank you.
So this is, then we'll have another reading when we vote on it. This is just.
Yeah.
correct. More questions? Hey,
I don't know, did we have a motion?
We did not, no.
I interrupted.
We had
I'm sorry.
question.
I
We don't-
followed,
No, that's fine, that's fine. So we would like a motion to introduce the ordinance.
I would make that motion.
Thank you.
Support.
We have motion and support. Any additional comments or questions at this point? Anything from staff that you want to add?
Just when you're talking about bed and breakfast, they are a home occupation, really. You must live within the home to have a B&B. Their Airbnb was very clever on how they've done that, of calling themselves Airbnb, because we get that question quite a bit. How can I make my place an Airbnb? Well, Airbnb is commercial, at least the way we look at it here within the city of Alma. You can rent your home out up to 14 days. That's state law, you can do that. But anything after that, we consider it a rental, and you must put it within the rental program and follow the rules. And there's no short-term rentals in our rental program. The only places that we have offered that is when we've done a conditional rezoning or you're in an R2 district. The R2 district allows for rooming houses, and a rooming house basically is a short-term stay with no meals provided. So that's the only way we legally provide I guess you'd say, an Airbnb. Yes, yeah. A bed and breakfast is not an Airbnb, and that's sometimes what people get confused about.
I was not aware of that.
And is that going to be problematic for us down the road? We always hear through the planning commission and through planning that we're not allowed to zone things out. You have to allow for everything.
We do. We have R2 is a
So-
rooming house.
So
and-
that will cover us and
Yes.
keep us out of hot water in
Yes,
that
it is.
regard.
Yep.
Okay.
So someone could affiliate with Airbnb, but they have to follow our rules.
Yes.
Right.
Yes, that's correct. Like, say the college, remember they came to us and asked for a conditional rezoning of the house on Center Street. They have 4 rooms that have become overnight stay rooms, and we conditionally rezoned that to an R2 under our rooming house definition.
Okay. Thank you.
Yep.
Now I believe we do have a motion and support on the table, so if there's no further questions, all those in favor would be yes.
Just the matches.
Yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. Motion is carried, and we have introduced the ordinance, so thank you. Moving down to reports of officers, boards, and committees, the city commission may receive the following reports by one resolution, or any commissioner may remove any item within this section for individual discussion and vote. Tonight, we have a planning commission, April 4, 2022 draft minutes, Downtown Development Authority, April 21, 2022 draft minutes, and the interim city manager's report. So your pleasure there.
Move to receive 1 and 2 reports.
Support.
A motion support, the first two. Any comments or questions? All those in favor say yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. Okay, the motion is passed. We received two. Leaves us with the interim city manager's report. We have a motion to receive that.
Move. Or support, whatever you need.
I think we have it, correct?
Yeah.
All right, so we have motion support. I presume that we have some questions for the city manager?
I assumed you wanted to take a roll.
Okay.
Yes, yep.
There we go.
Want to go through some budget
That sounds
reviews.
like a question.
Yep,
So-
want to go through some budget review stuff.
Mhm.
Specifically on our enterprise funds. We talked a little bit about, at our two and a half hour presentation on the budget, and thank you for everyone for being engaged the whole entire time. So for our water, wastewater, and solid waste, over the last 3-4 years, we have not really kept up with the increases in costs for those enterprise funds, and have not increased rates during that time period. I think under water, I think the most we've done over those years is a 6% increase. On the water side, as you can see in the black golden areas there, what staff is recommending and the change in rates, what those rates would be. For water, over the last 5 years, GAWA the water they're selling us has gone up 5% each year, and we have not kept up with that. Like I said, I believe that we've done 6% over that time period. Our neighbors in St. Louis, they have raised their rates to 5% each year to keep up with that, the rate that the GAWA is selling us the water. Being behind that way, obviously we have some catching up to do, and that's just for the operations and the purchasing of water. So what we're recommending as staff, and we don't make decisions on this tonight, this is just for you to think about for our next meeting, we'll need to set rates, and so it's part of the budget when we approve that on the 24th of May. On water, consumption only, the consumption only charge, not the base rate, which is your ready to serve side of things. The consumption side is after the ready to serve is hit, is a recommended 20% increase on consumption charge only.
Can you explain the difference between consumption and ready to use?
Your ready to serve fee that's on there is your distribution of the piping, and then you get so many gallons of water for that. That's your basic fee, kind of like when you pay your consumer's bill. They have that distribution line in there. That's their kind of the ready to service fee. You're paying for your distribution. Everything that's after that base rate of what you get for gallons of water, depending on if you're the whole residential, commercial, and then industrial, then that's that consumption side of things. And to give, obviously we talked about before, numbers are easier to understand than just percentages. For the first 25,000 gallons, that would look like $3.07, and that would jump up to $3.69 per 1,000 gallons. The next 175,000, which is, you're not talking residential when you're talking about that. 175,000 gallons, you're at the 302 to $3.63 per 1,000 gallons. And then over 200,000 gallons, you're at $2.43. That would go up to $2.92 per 1,000 gallons.
So those dollar signs are really not, it's not $1,000, it's $1,000.
No, those are gallons.
Gallons. Oh, yeah, there is a
I'm
dollar
sorry.
sign.
There's no, that
Yes,
should
there
be,
is. Yeah, I see that.
that's Eric's
I didn't even notice.
fingers doing the walking.
It's okay,
No,
I just
they're not dollar
didn't know if
signs.
I didn't understand that it was per $1,000 or
Yes, per $1,000,
No,
yeah.
per 1,000 gallons. I apologize.
That's okay.
That's my fault. Wastewater, we're in much better shape with where our fund balance is and where we stand with what we've been charging. So we're only recommending a 5% change on the consumption side again, only, not on the base rate side. That would go from the $3.71 to $3.90 per 1,000 gallons of usage. So that's kind of tied to our water. Gallons you use, you're assuming that many gallons are going out, so.
I'm sorry, I don't know if you want to finish this before you take questions,
No,
or?
it's about wastewater water, let's talk about it now.
Yeah, it occurs to me, you know, we're not proposing an increase to the ready-to-serve charge, yet we're facing this daunting challenge of our 100-year-old pipes that are buried all over our city. And I think the first order of business, we've got, I believe it's about $250,000 worth of charges or costs we're going to incur to do a baseline study of our water distribution to the homes, right? Is that not where this should be collected? I mean, the state is expecting us to collect the money to do that study and to do future enhancements, improvements. How can we not look at the base rate when we know we're gonna incur this I think it's $250,000, is that right, David?
Yes.
Up in roughly the figure that,
You're right.
and that's just for this first year study, that
Yes.
doesn't, and we know it's gonna be bigger in the future.
Plus the replacements of maintenance you mentioned too.
What would $250,000 look like if we added it to everybody's base rate? Do we have, and maybe you don't have the question now, but I see Curtis made a mistake of coming, so perhaps he'd like to run some numbers for us and, you know, let us know what that would look like if we were to say, this is how we're going to pay for that study, the improvements. I mean, it's a water system improvement. Seems like the water fund should be where the money is coming from. I don't
That's
know
where it
how much fairer of a distribution you could, you know, cost sharing you could get. And that would truly let the folks know, you know, what I mean, it's just a pass-through. We're not doing anything, nobody's gaining by this, other than hopefully if something is found, but.
Well, we're gonna have to
An
pay for
improved
that one
system.
way or the other, so.
Yeah, and I think we should take a look at least the possibility of going through that route.
Does anybody have a clue, Sarah, anybody, what the average household consumption of water is a month? Just rough shot, I mean, it's for the first 25,000 gallons. Do I use 25,000 gallons of water a month, or way under that, or way, I mean, I don't know. I don't know, I don't look.
Based on numbers that we've ran, the average family of four, somewhere around $80 a month is what their usage is. Curtis is back there hiding, but.
Is that for
Some of
both
the
the
numbers that we
RTU
looked at.
and the water? Yeah, because my total bill's about $80
Yeah.
for everything. How many gallons of water does the average household use?
Should know that, and I don't, so I
Okay.
apologize for that. I was thinking in terms of the billing.
I'm pretty sure that when was
You have to do that,
no, that can be
average
figured
use
out.
of water.
Yeah.
Would you do the math though? You got $3 and whatever?
Well, what's the ready-to-serve charge? If we knew that, we could
Yeah.
figure it out.
There's a baseline that we get, this is
It's like
above,
around $58, ready to serve.
Ready-to-serve is,
That ready to serve is
That'd be the water,
water,
sewer,
sewer, and trash.
Oh,
Okay,
yeah.
so it's all
The
combined.
base rate is $58, that's not just the water.
okay.
We'll
It's
get
a little
that.
more complicated.
We'll get that for you.
We,
And-
It gets messy fast, doesn't
Yeah,
it?
and we can talk, that's appreciated what you're asking there about the improvements in the capital side of things,
Mhm.
because what we were trying to do at least is to get some stuff in front of you to start catching ourselves up on what we've been
Right.
lacking to do for the actual water. But no, we can put some numbers together to bring back to you for the actual capital.
Well, I mean, it
side of
sounds
things.
like the GAWA has done a good job of covering their costs of what their operations are, and we've done a poor job of it, so while we've saved our ratepayers in the past, we're gonna cause them pain in the future, so there is no real savings to be had. It's gonna cost what it's gonna cost, and everybody has to have water. And, you know, I'm still very pleased with the quality of our water. I think we've got a good product too, so.
No, we will put
We
something
know
together
we're
for you.
facing some costs here.
Okay. No, we will put that together for, I appreciate that, because we were trying to find a way to, you know, because ease into it, but, no, maybe we can adjust that a little bit and talk about some capital.
Kind of,
too.
maybe the two things should be together, otherwise we do this right now, and next year we figure out, holy cow, how are we gonna pay for this $250,000? So next year we throw another water charge on them. They're not gonna know the difference, or just, you guys just raised our water rates last year.
And just so everyone's clear, we will be looking at increases for a number of years.
Everything
Yeah.
increases every
Yes.
year.
Yeah.
Like I
This
said,
will-
our cable bill, our cell phone bills,
You won't be
everything.
able to bite this all in
Yeah.
one time, for
Yeah.
sure, so.
Yeah.
Just, but
It'd
no,
be nice to have an idea of what that would generate,
Yes.
or what it would cost the average person to generate that $250,000 to cover next year's costs.
Right.
we will do that.
And like Greg mentioned, this is gonna be a cycle through the entire city for the lead and copper research. This is just the first part, so.
Right.
Yeah, stay
Yeah.
tuned for the next 20 years. This is what.
This is just the
entails,
survey.
so It's
Yeah.
just a point to bring up, so thank you.
Just the
Yeah,
survey.
this isn't fixing the city of,
No.
by any stretch of the imagination. Okay, on that cheery note, go ahead,
Yep,
please, I'm
yep,
sorry. to
no, no
interrupt.
problem. And then the last one is our solid waste, which includes, your trash pickup, and then, our weekly, yard waste pickup also. So, this one's probably, I guess if you wanna say, the good deal stuff, it's we're going up just a few cents. 5%, I must have switched those, I apologize, from 21.56 to 22.15 for our base charge for solid waste. So based on our projections, I flipped those around, I apologize. Based on our projections, the current, using our usage data, rate modeling, and increase across all funds will result on average of a $7.50 to $8 a month increase for residential users. That's across all three of those funds. The increase would be $14 to $15 a month increase for the commercial for water and wastewater. We do not provide solid waste for commercial users. But that's just this year. Obviously, that $7.50 to $8 would be just for this year, and obviously there'd be an increase next year, just to kind of give you an idea of what we're looking at. But obviously that could change. Obviously, we'll go back and take some look at those capital improvements and give you some numbers on that.
So just,
The city's getting expensive to run.
yeah. Okay. All right. Any questions on that? Continue? You got more?
Okay.
or-
Street millage.
On those, no, we'll still jump right into the street millage stuff then. Our last discussion, we talked about the language for the millage, currently was at 2.5. We discussed possibility of a 3.5 millage with that 1 mil going extra to maintenance type techniques for roads, be it seal coat, crack sealing, mill resurface, and then we did talk about what we call a cutout process. As we look through that possibility with that extra mill, is the commission thinking that they would like to look at asking for that extra mill as part of a millage this time around and making that a 3.5 mil? Or looking at, we could do it the other way where you go forward with your 2.5 mil for your street reconstruction and then come back later and request a mill to do the maintenance type things. Just would like to see how you'd like to schedule that out, because then as we put together presentations and a video and that sort of thing, it would kind of narrow down what we talk to the general public about.
Well, I can see the benefit of if we're doing them as two different things, that the 1 mil for maintenance, that you maybe would want that separate, but I don't know.
Sarah, can I ask you a question? I'm trying to remember back from my old school days. Can you do a 2.5, or do a renewal millage, you can't use the word, renewal millage and an additional millage as one? Can we just go for 3.5, or do we have to go for a 2.5 and a 1 additional?
No, you can,
It's all considered new.
yeah, it's,
Right?
it's, these are,
It's all-
that's
That's
the,
right,
that's the
because it's
positive
Headley.
side of that
Okay,
Headley
that's
stuff.
right, okay.
This is a new millage anyway,
Okay,
so you could ask for what you're gonna ask for.
okay.
Just up to the
All right.
limit, whatever the limit, how close you guys are to it.
Mhm.
I mean, part of it's the question of what's gonna give us the best chance for success.
Right, exactly.
I mean, in my head, I'm thinking, going back to Roxanne's, so you do the renewal, I know it's a new millage, but it doesn't change anything, come back and talk about how we extend the benefit of that original millage by doing these projects. That's, 1 mil is probably more manageable in terms of people absorbing that cost, if you can make a case. And I don't know, because if you can make a case to say, you know what, we can extend this, or we can do more things for your roads with that additional mill, but these are gonna be stopgap measures. Which is, in a sense, kicking the can down the road, but you're also making the road better to kick the
So
can down, so.
If we do 3.5 mils, I mean, right now, the last presentation we saw, I believe, when this millage first started 20-some years ago, 30 years ago.
35.
Well, pardon me?
35.
35 years ago, so, boy, that was a while ago. But when we first started this program, we were able to do a mile and a quarter, something like that, wasn't it? And
Probably just a tick under, I would guess, but yeah.
But now that same 2.5 mils gets us a fifth of that, maybe?
Less than a quarter mile for sure, so it's, I'm thinking in terms of the percentages that I used, but it's, probably, I would argue, just 3/4 less to probably.
So I'm thinking to keep this program going, we need to go for 3.5 here on this millage and do another couple mills 2 years from now. Request it again for maintenance. I mean, we're just falling farther behind, and like with the water, you just deny, you can sit here in denial, but are we doing
So
ourselves
just
any
make the
favor?
presentation like for 35 years, so you paid 2.5, and now it's time to go up to 3.5.
I believe so, yeah, I guess that's kind of my feeling, that, you know, the cost of these roads is just skyrocketed, we're doing a fraction of what we used to do. Pardon me?
We've been
We
voting on
haven't
it.
done it.
We've been voting on it for 35, but
In 5-year increments.
every
Every
5
so
years,
many
years.
every 5 years, every 5 years.
We haven't had 35 votes on it, but in 5-year increments, I believe they've all
5 year
been.
It's not been one vote.
No, not one solid vote for
We haven't
35
changed
years.
it.
And this is again a 5-year increment, right?
Yes.
No, 6-year
Is
increment.
it 6 or
6 years, I'm sorry,
The
yeah.
last election cycle, we had to go to 6 because of the election changes, but traditionally it was every 5.
Okay.
This is another 6-year cycle. Last time around was the first 6-year cycle.
Yeah, I would like the 3.5.
The question, I think, though, that you guys have to ask and answer is, where's that number that if you go up too far,
Lose it.
you
Well-
know, it goes down to its feet,
Yeah.
and then you don't get anything. And that's the,
And there is that, but I think
so I mean, I guess where's that sweet spot, I
if,
guess.
if the community knows what they're getting for their money, I believe
No.
people will support it. I don't think people are upset with spending money when they know what they're getting for it. They want good roads. I mean, I think it's pretty clear, I'm convinced that people want good roads. And they know it costs money, and if they think, you know, if we can show them that we are using this money responsibly, I think the millage will pass. I guess if it doesn't, it doesn't, but
It doesn't.
I think the reason things don't pass in most cases is because people think they're not getting their money's worth. And I think the community is pretty well convinced this has been a good program, I hope.
I'm biased, but I
The,
think.
yeah, well, the feedback I'm getting is everybody likes it, and
There's a limit, I mean, there are
There- and there
restrictions
is a
on what you,
limit.
no, but there's restrictions on what you use the money. We can't put a public pool in back here
Right.
with that road money, right?
yeah,
That's
we
the
are
only
doing
way you
exactly
can
what we
do
tell
this.
them with this money. It's going to the road, it's going right to the road, and it's not, we're not doing a bait and switch, we're not taking money that used to go to the roads from someplace else and doing whatever with that. This is a pure program.
I'm thinking, I did a graphic of millage and what construction cost 35 years ago. Probably the gap is, I mean, I'm sure the revenue from millage went up because property
Well,
values went
he
up.
had that on
Yeah.
the slides.
But that gap has gotta be, I think you
Yeah,
can do
that's
that.
part of that slide where it's showing where the costs have gone up. The costs have really gone up based on anything that's labor intensive. It goes, some of the things go according to what commodity costs are. Asphalt is one, but it's not, that's volatile, but that's really not the really biggest reason. But yeah, we could show where those costs.
Yeah, and I don't know that people need to know they just need to know, here's bottom line what
Well,
it costs.
the details need to be available,
Yeah,
but
We need to get
behind
out.
it-
the big
I think-
picture.
I think visually that's pretty potent, and I also think if you said, look, this is what that additional mill is gonna, that's what a 3.5 millage instead of a 2.5 would get us. But I think it's gotta be something that has visual impact, and to just look at it, it's true.
And knowing where that sweet spot is, my gut feeling on this is going up 1 mil would not be a killer. If we double from 2.5 to 5, ain't gonna happen, okay? But if we're based on giving them some, to say,
Well, but again, like I just said under my breath, it's not gonna be a dramatic amount that we're gonna be able to do with one more mill.
Every little bit helps, but
Sure, absolutely.
just doing some rough numbers, I was just doing the math. If we do 2.5 mills, I estimate about 461,000, so if I divide that by the 2.5, about $184,000 more is what we could potentially generate. There's a chunk change. It's not enough to do a street reconstruction, but it could be enough to do overlays, maybe building fills.
Mill and fills.
That has the potential of going towards something.
Do we know the percentage, like the last couple of elections, how wide the,
The last one was about a 67% yes.
Which is
if I recall.
Pretty substantial margin.
Yeah.
Years past, it was in the 80s and 70s. I have an idea of, I think, what might have been the controversy for it, but that's only an idea. And I don't know if I'd express it in front of the camera just because it's only an idea of being here a number of years, hearing what I hear, the complaints on my end of it. But taking some of those variables out for this next projected amount, hoping that that'll get more people in support of it, and try to get them more behind it. So that was part of what went into, didn't have a factor because the roads are what they are, but taking out some of those other costs that could be attributed, sidewalks were the one I took out. So I did not factor those costs into it. That's something we can always add after the fact. We could add an SAD for those. Those are always manageable to do in the future. Yeah, whatever the best success is, we're all gonna be on the same page, so hopefully if we go yes, need everybody's support, everybody to help us to get an education out there, so. It'll work.
Well, I got a feeling then that we should be looking at the 3.5, so let's start putting some presentations together and start hitting the pavement to, getting out there and start talking to people, and we'll get a video put together and get some knowledge out there about it, so, thank you.
Cheryl, we have was it July 1st deadline for the ballot language too, right? I think that's what you said last time, as far as getting it.
I think it's within a couple of days of the first meeting in August.
Oh, okay.
I don't know, July stood out to me, but I tried to get everything to make sure we're ahead of the game.
I think
They
we
gave
talked
you
about,
early
never hurts to
dates,
have it
right?
early.
Yeah, I
that's
think
why
I
I'm
gave you early
thinking
dates, but I wanna say
July.
that it's right after one of the first meetings in August, and have to double check that.
Great.
July would be a good target.
Yes, it'd be. Perfect. All right, and just in your packet, I did provide, we're gonna be heading into campaign season soon. The Plan Commission was working on a, update of our sign ordinance, to get up to date and compliant with, the 2016 Supreme Court decision on basically, lack of a better word, self-expression signs, self-reflective signage. So we'll keep you in the loop on that. I'll be bringing that back up to the Planning Commission at our next meeting here in a week, to start back down that path of discussion. We have 4 new members on the Planning Commission there, so we need to.
I just had a question. Tony, when I read it, remember when we talked about this at one point, made a distinction between commercial signage and expressions. Did the Supreme Court decision just wipe that distinction out?
No, that distinction's still there. The distinction, I think we were discussing the last time, these political signs that weren't necessarily for candidates running for a specific office at a specific time. And the way that the sign ordinance defines a sign, it is talking about an event or a business or whatever, and I'm paraphrasing, not doing a very good job of it either, but a free expression sign is different. And so, in my opinion, and I wrote it back in 19, I think, just way before the pandemic, these signs, these free expression signs, did not fall within the definition of a sign in our ordinance, because we defined a sign as a certain, talking about a certain event, whatever. With a candidate sign, though, that obviously is talking about an event. And I have done some research in that, and that part of the ordinance, as most people in the city would say, yeah, it's probably a good idea to get those candidate signs up and out within so many days after the election, and maybe we don't want them in too many days before the election. The case law on that is that's an infringement on the First Amendment.
That's considered
So
expression.
that is a problem, and obviously the planning commissions, they're gonna be aware of all of that when they try to figure that out, but that's,
Yeah,
that
that
is gonna
blurs
be
the
an
line though, right, in terms of what's
Yes.
expression, what's commercial.
Yep.
And so that expression includes what may be considered offensive language in conjunction with a campaign
Yes,
sign?
absolutely,
So-
and that came up in
Yeah,
2020.
It did.
Yeah, and yeah, there's some case law on that too, that, as long as it's not fighting words, if, using words that most of us don't wanna hear, or maybe some of us don't mind, but other people don't wanna hear, that's okay, as long as it's not fighting words, and it's an interesting distinction. We had an issue in Alma with a sign that I thought crossed the line initially, and then they very cleverly adapted it so that it didn't. It still was pretty close to the line, but, so, those things are, they might offend people, but.
Yeah. But there's nothing we can do about it. I mean, our hands are tied by the court
Absolutely.
cases.
And we had multiple discussions, especially with Matt Schooley when he, when he was city manager, about those signs and what we could do, if anything, about them. We did change one, but the rest of them, we felt like, hey, it falls within the First Amendment.
And that's why you see so many red lines through our sign ordinance, because it's really just doesn't.
It's all
doesn't-
gone.
The
Yeah.
changes,
It's that much change,
It's all
so,
gone.
so we're,
And that wasn't that old.
no, we
It
started,
wasn't that long ago we did that.
we were working on May 21st, May 21, was when we were working on that to get that done, and then we got other things that we're working on, but we'll get back to that, so we have, an updated, that is, at least up to date with what we currently have. It seems like every time we do something with the sign ordinance, within weeks, I have someone saying, well, what about this, or something, so it seems like it's a never-ending document, so. But, then we also did provide, all the individuals that have submitted petitions for city commission for the regular term and the partial term. And thanks to Sarah, she provided this information for me. That we provided in there, it's kind of outdated now, because we passed those dates of being able to withdraw, that sort of thing, so. And then tonight on the agenda also, I just wanted to, and plus it's nice to put out in the public, the DDA did choose some trash receptacles for the downtown that we'll be talking about tonight. And I think we got something that everyone will like, and everybody voted unanimously at the DDA board for it, so. So, so anyway, that's a nice thing that's gonna be coming along here, so. Unless I have any other questions,
Any questions for?
I'm done.
Hey, Eric?
Yeah.
I've got a couple of answers to some of the water questions if we wanna go back to it right now.
Sure.
You wanna, come up to the podium, please, so we can.
One of the
We gotta remember
main-
Dave, to have Dave do that also when he's speaking, because we've heard that he can't be heard either from the audience.
First off, I apologize for being late tonight, so, question on
And just for you'll introduce yourself, please, Curtis, so for those. on
Curtis
TV
Dancer,
that may
Finance
not know
Director.
you, so.
Base rates, I know that's talked about, the base water rate is $11.36, the base sewer rate is $23.46. So those are the base rates, cause I know that was a question. The average usage for a residential home per month, if I did the factor right, so if this is off by a factor of 10, please let me know. 4,600 gallons? Did I miss a decimal somewhere? 'Cause I know there's a multiply by 100, divide by 10, all that math. So-
That sounds
That sounds about right.
Well, it'd either be moving the comma over one way or, so it's either 46,000, 4,600, or 46. So 4,600 sounded.
460
Well,
cents.
it depends on how many gallons are included in the base rate. Isn't there 10,000 gallons or something included in the base rate?
I believe it's 1,000. I
It's
believe.
how much?
1,000.
Just 1,000, okay.
Yeah, so I want to make that clarification, and then I was kind of half listening, so I was looking at that information, so I just wanted to make sure I clarified one thing real quick. With the solid waste rate that we talked about, it is going from 22.15, but by the proposed 22.15 to 21.56, so it's actually going down, not up, and that's because we're proposing the yard waste to go up, but the trash is going down. So, Just wanted to make sure.
Okay, so I did put that wrong, okay.
No,
I did
you're
write
right.
I
that
think you were right the first time.
I read
So,
it, and I was
yeah,
like,
you're
oh,
right
gosh,
the
I
first
missed
time.
it.
It is,
Yep.
the yard waste is going up, but the trash part's going down, so it actually would be a down in total, so. I think those are the
For this
things.
year only, because
For-
obviously.
And then the trash will go up every year over the life of the contract, so it'll continue to go up, but for this year, that would be a down. So, just wanted,
Okay.
Thanks,
Good,
Curtis.
thank you, Curtis.
Curtis.
4,600 gallons.
Anything more, or
I'm all set, unless you guys have
Okay.
more questions.
any more questions for Eric? I believe we had a motion support on the table to receive his reports, so no more questions. All those in favor would be yes.
Yes.
Any opposed would be no. We have received the report. Thank you very much. Moving to unfinished business, we need continued discussion to provide direction to staff regarding the neighborhood street millage ballot proposal.
We did
So
that.
I think we may have covered part of that anyway, so.
I think we can cross that one off
Yeah.
there.
We did that.
If you have any more questions about that, I think we kind of covered it there, so what we needed to, where you want us to go, so.
Any more comments on this? We're good? All right, thank you. Moving on to new business, would consider a resolution to approve a request from the Alma Downtown Development Authority to engage OHM advisors and provide parking lot, to provide parking lot, alley, and drainage, design and engineering for 5 parking lots and adjacent alleys in the amount of $122,438. Their pleasure.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Motion support, comments or questions?
Already
Oh, yeah,
Background?
we talked about this a little bit, with the commission already, but, at our last EDA meeting, the board, approved to use $100,000 of our EDA fund balance to put toward the design work, to get these, parking lots, underway. It's been something that's been long overdue, and we're happy to finally get this going. If, we do approve this tonight, the engineers figure about 6 months to get us all the drawings and be ready to go out for bid, which would be
How
ready
long
for
here?
next year. 6 months.
6 months.
Yep, so we'll be ready for next year's construction season.
All right. Questions? Okay, hearing none, I just would like to say I'm very pleased to see this moving forward. I know it's been part of my conversations for 30 years, so I'm really glad to see some action taking place here, so. So I think we hit a motion, is that correct? Motion support, so all those in favor is yes?
Yes.
Any opposed is no. Motion is passed. Thank you. Number 2, consider a resolution to approve a recommendation from the Alma Downtown Development Authority to purchase 28 gray Arwin, I think it's called, style trash receptacles with domed lids from Barco Products with a total approximate cost of $13,000 for downtown Alma. Your pleasure.
Move to approve.
Support.
We have motion support. Any comments or questions?
For the funds for this, we had to budget $30,000 for the downtown landscape fund, and using MSU, that only cost us $2,500, so we have some funds available to get this done, so.
Great. Okay. All those in favor, but yes?
Yes.
Any opposed is no. That motion is passed as well. Our downtown's gonna start looking spiffy.
That's right.
Consideration of a resolution from the Alma Public Library Board that the City of Alma make a one-time contribution from their general fund to the Alma Public Library Fund in the amount of $275,000 to cover the projected unrestricted net position deficit in the current fiscal year.
Move to adopt.
Support.
Comments or questions? I guess I have one then. Curtis, you are still around, right? You supplied us with a budget document. It's projecting for our current fiscal year a negative $323,196
correct,
is the projection for the current fiscal year ending 6/30/2022.
correct.
Does that include this $275,000?
It does not.
Does not.
It is
So
based on current projections.
if this was to go forward, then our deficit goes to $500,000 or thereabouts
Correct,
for the current fiscal year.
correct.
And I believe when we adopted our budget at the beginning of the year, we were looking at a balanced budget.
Correct.
This is considerably not a balanced budget.
Correct.
this is awful late in the year to be learning we're $500,000 in the hole. What happens if we don't do this $275,000 to the library?
Then the library will show a net unrestricted deficit for the second year in a row, and it'll most likely be an audit finding.
So they were, I mean, we thought they had money. We thought there was money there.
Yes.
We were told, I learned it was $90,000, I think, at one point a couple of months ago, and it's now $275,000. And that's just for this year.
That is for this year and last year's, because we started negative, because we were negative last year.
Okay.
So it would be last year's negative plus
When
this
did
year.
we discover that?
I believe the commission was made aware of it during the audit probably the commission meeting before the audit presentation, so beginning of December, end of December, somewhere in that general vicinity.
Okay. And were any changes made to operations to try and stem the losses?
Since we have been aware of it, I believe that the library has, I guess I can't speak, I believe that there has been a conscious effort. I know that Lori's talked about
We
putting
have
some things on
tried.
hold because we were waiting
We
to
have
kind of find
tried to-
direction, so.
To tighten our belt as best we can. We're 3/4 of the way through the year, and there's still, contractual services fees and things that, monthly expenses and stuff. But we have tried to tighten our belt. We've cut back on some of our part-time hours, but like I said, we kind of found out 3/4 of the way through this fiscal year that there was an issue also. So we'd already spent that money that was, the approved budget, so we did not even, we found out about the same time.
Do we have a plan for going forward, how we're gonna fill this hole? We can't do this on a continual basis. There just is not going to be
Right, but I
money
believe,
there.
from my understanding is, it was not taken care of prior to, they weren't given the right amount of the budget for previous years before Curtis came in. So they were using wrong funds, incorrect funds, telling the library, correct. Kind of, they were set, like, for an example, they were
So-
said their budget is
The
$100,000,
yes, the
but really
budget that was given to the library was a budget that was in theory not a balanced
Right.
budget.
So they were
So-
told for several years before last
Correct.
year's budget and this year's budget, they were told that they had this much in their budget, when realistically, the
Because-
finance department weren't
Yeah.
correct when
We
they
were
talking.
they were given a balanced budget from a true revenues and expenses, not a balanced budget from an operational standpoint, because they were given a true balanced budget counting revenue that was restricted revenue that could not be used for operations. So the budget on paper was balanced, but it was showing an operational loss, and this was the case for several years, not just last. Yes.
So we're trying to catch up for several years of error.
Sure.
Sure. I'll state that back. You don't have to say that.
And I get that. I'm just questioning, I mean, we've built a beautiful library, we've got some wonderful programs, and I'm very supportive of that, or I certainly wanna be. I just don't know how we're gonna be able to afford to continue doing everything that we've been doing
So
from a budgetary perspective. If it's 2 years for $275,000, that's going forward, we know everything's gonna cost more. We're talking an additional $150,000 coming out of the budget every year. And I'm not sure that's gonna cover the increased cost going forward. I just real troubled to pretend this doesn't exist and that we can go forward without making some kind of changes.
yes, I definitely think, and there's been endless discussions between Lori and I and the library board and everybody about our plan going forward. Just, this isn't, there's kind of two separate issues here. The plan to fix what's already happened and then the plan of how we're gonna go forward. This recommendation is solely to fix what is basically in theory already occurred and to fix the past mistakes. Then going forward, I do agree that I think there needs to be significant discussion about the sustainability of continuing library operations, and I know that they have worked on where they can make cuts and where they can decrease, because every cut they make is, theoretically is a decrease from the amount that the general fund has to contribute. So I do know that they are working, like I said, I think the initial budget for next year, because we did just kind of treat everything just like it normally is, plus inflation costs, what would that budget look like? I think the first budget we looked at was like, would have required like a $330,000 contribution, and we've made cuts to get that down to, now next year's recommendation is down to $245, and we are continuing to look at every single possible way that we can cut even into that more. So there is definitely been a concerted effort on that part. Now, whether that's enough, whether that's sustainable, whether that, I mean, that's a whole nother question when we look at the general fund as a whole, but there are concerted efforts being made by, like I said, I've probably spent more time with Lori than I've spent with my wife in the last 6 months trying to figure out all this stuff. So, I mean, we are definitely working towards figuring out every possible cut that can be made without making, at this point, without making any real cuts to operations, because that was, I mean, that was the first step, was what is the bare minimum we can do with keeping up with operations. Obviously, if the commission as a whole feels like that's not enough, we'd have to go back to the drawing board and figure out what other cuts that can be made. But we feel like, I don't want to speak out of turn of the library board, but I think, like I said, I've met with them too, and we feel like we have basically made all the cuts that we can make at this point without starting to affect operations. And if the cuts are not enough at this point, then that's opens up the conversation of,
And these are, you're saying, from the last year or two, so it's things that have happened already, so you know what cuts you make. It's not gonna fix the last couple of years, right?
I mean, we would have to cut, not only we'd have to cut going forward, we'd have to cut going forward and then some to make up the deficit if we don't make up the deficit currently, because this is already an existing
How do you
deficit.
cut going back? That's what I'm saying, it's existing.
I mean,
can't cut
you
going
would
back.
basically have to say,
We shut
if
down.
we have $200,000 of revenue, or $200,000 budget for revenue, we'd have to have 150 for expenses to make up the gap, not just a 200 and 200, which also probably, as far as the logical standpoint, would take a long, long time to make up this kind of numbers without, again, a significant impact in operations, which to this point, we have not proposed a budget that shows a significant impact in operations. It's just been the bare minimum to continue operations as.
And while we all love the operations we've got, I am more and more growing convinced that we can't afford the operations we've got. I mean, we'd all love to drive Cadillacs and Teslas, but everybody can't. I mean, if we look at our neighboring libraries, you know, I don't believe, it's my understanding from what I've seen, none of our Ithaca St. Louis adjoining libraries are contributing general fund dollars to their libraries. They're getting money through the county millage and penal fines and whatever other sources they have, which seems to be not much, but they certainly are operating on substantially less money than we are. And I just struggle to, I mean, we've got so many other priorities in town that have been ignored for decades. How we can continue
Maybe
this.
this is not, what do you, I mean, I understand in a dollar sense what you're saying, but what do you propose we do? We just shut it down and have an empty building? I mean, I'm not trying to be difficult, I just don't understand. I mean, I feel like these things have already happened, and we have to figure out something going forward, but I don't, but that's a whole different discussion.
Right, so we need
But-
275,000 to get our head above water
Right.
again. We're gonna just, all that does, 275,000 takes us to June 30,
Right,
we're even.
right.
Right.
And
But
then
no,
our
what's
budget
the
we saw,
suggestion?
the budget we saw 2 weeks ago proposed $330,000.
The one that you saw last week, 300,000. Yes,
300,000
because we'd cut already 35,000 before we'd given that
I
to
think
you.
a conversation we need to have,
My insulin.
I was gonna say, do you need something over there?
Yeah, well, you know, lots of.
I'm stressing her out.
Help me,
It is, it's causing me a lot of anxiety.
if you can, Chris, when those erroneous budgets were constructed, and really, the budget was built on two things. It was built on the restricted and the unrestricted dollars, which we have general fund dollars. What percentage of the total budget was coming out of restricted? So, or what, give me a dollar amount.
Roughly revenue, we'd be talking about, give or take, 225,000 of the total revenue of 750,000.
Okay, so 200,
So-
so if the budget was, you're telling me you have a budget of 300,000, I'm just trying, it may not make any difference at all. And the general, if we took out what they would have been getting out of this, the budget from the general fund would have been 100 change, right? Instead of the total, so we're not, we wouldn't be increasing what would have been typically the general fund fair by amount. I'm trying to do this in my head, I'm looking at like two different colors of budget, right? The money that's restricted is the grant, but we used it, so it was coming out of general fund. The actual general fund dollars would have been much less, right?
The general fund dollars that would have been required would have been more, so the amount that was being required would
More,
have been
okay,
less.
more.
Yes. Because essentially we were,
I'm giving myself.
the city was only contributing what they thought they needed in order to get to a balanced budget, but that balanced budget included revenue that couldn't be included, so if you took out
Correct,
that
yeah, it
revenue,
wasn't
you'd have
not
needed
spendable
more
dollars.
in order to get to that balance.
It was already, got
I
it.
think.
I was going backwards, okay.
Curtis, when's the last year that happened?
The last year, what happened?
Last year that the budget was erroneous in the sense that they thought they had unrestricted money, but it wasn't unrestricted. When was the last year that happened? That they were supposed to get, what they thought was unrestricted funds that they could use, and it turns out they couldn't use them. You said that was going on for a period of time.
Yeah, I think even the current budget year we're in was showing,
Is that way?
was showing
Okay.
that way, yeah.
They just became aware of
Yeah.
it recently.
It came to light through last year's audit, so we really became aware of this after last year's budget was already
Okay.
adopted.
All right.
So,
And that number was $90,000, and now we're at 275, so somebody must have discovered more someplace. Because at one point, we were at $90,000 hole.
from last
Remember
year,
that? I don't remember that
yeah, I guess I'm not sure where the
I
90.
remember at one point, I had a $90,000 number in my mind.
Say,
Let's
we
go back
started
and
last
find
year,
it.
I think, at -55, or started this year at -55. And then, I think the -90 would have been had we, I guess I'm not positive. I think we were saying, had we gotten the original 175 this year, we still would have been $90,000 off this year. But the commission only approved 75,000. I think that might be where the 90,000 number was coming from. Because that would have put us, because then without the extra 100,000 this year, we'd be at 190 for this year, plus the 55 from last year would put us at about a 250,000 total, which is about what we're still projecting because we're still got time.
You're at 275 now.
Yes, and the reason that we said the 275, we do think that number's gonna be a little bit higher, but we kind of want to give ourselves a cushion so that we didn't be I would think it would feel silly to go pick a number and then still be just a little bit higher and still have an audit finding. We might as well do just a little bit of a cushion.
So you
And the
think 275 is
275,
more than you're hoping for,
I'm hoping that the 275 would give us a little bit of a cushion.
but not much.
Yes, not much. Enough of a cushion to keep us from possibly going zero so that it would be an audit finding. And the reason that the 275, I believe, was decided because the 175 would have been, if we would have continued at the pace of 175 over all these years, there would have been $175,000 in 2021 that we did zero, and then an extra 100,000 in the current year budget would have made it so that it was 175 every year for the last 8 years. So that 175 plus that 100,000 would be the 275, plus we give a little bit of cushion.
And what I would like us to do is, we're 275,000 in the hole right now. We are where we are. We're gonna have to deal with that. We're gonna have to fill that hole. There's no getting around it. Everything okay, Rob?
Yes, it is.
Okay,
It's just new, I got it yesterday.
Okay.
And I haven't quite,
If you need something,
no, I'm good.
don't,
Thanks.
okay, just
Thank you.
please, if you
Yes.
need something,
Thank you.
we can do whatever, we can accommodate whatever needs to be done, so, okay. Got my train of thought, but I guess.
It's really loud, I'm sorry.
No, that's fine, don't worry about
Sleep
that.
last night.
And many nights I don't sleep, so, welcome to the club. In my mind, we're gonna, like I said, we're gonna have to fill that hole, 275, we got no choice, one way or the other, we're gonna fill it today, we're gonna fill it tomorrow, we're gonna fill it over the next 5 years, I don't know how you do it, and keep the audit findings going. If we wanna maintain that stature, that's fine. But going forward, I think think we have to face the fact that, you know, if we could fund the library at $300,000 out of general fund, and that's money we're not gonna have for police and fire or fixing roads or whatever else we do with it, we have to live within our means. We've got X amount of revenue, you can't spend X plus 300 and
Well, they've already
expect to
brought it
go
down to
forward.
245, 235.
But to me, that's still unacceptable. You know,
Well, they're
and I
working on it.
appreciate it, but
Yeah.
in my mind, 100,000 to the general, from the general fund should cover our library operations, in addition to all the other funding they get. I mean, it has other sources of funds. There's two other rather substantial sources of funds. You know, and then maybe it really is gonna invoke a hard conversation. I don't know if we can talk about a district library system again, so that we can share more of these costs amongst the libraries, so all of our communities aren't supporting, you know, head-to-toe operations. There should be some savings in there if we could get together with others, and, you know, we're forcing other departments to look at things like that. I think we gotta take a clean sheet of paper approach to these things and say, what can it look like, what can we afford, and how do we make it go forward?
And in full disclosure of that, Eric and myself did present to the county library board, back in, what, about a month ago or so, I'm not exactly sure the exact date.
Just over a month.
And we did bring up the fact that based on statistics and based on, I mean, we had a whole presentation basically showing that we felt like we were not getting an equitable share of the total countywide revenue that was being based on basically based on the level of activity that we are doing. So we have presented that. There was discussion, it was tabled, not really, I mean, so that has been, we have let our feelings be known on that. We have presented on that. They are aware of our feelings and are, as far as I'm aware, looking into or discussing, or we're gonna bring it up at the next one about how going forward, if there's a more equitable way to split up how the countywide millage is allocated. I don't know if anything will come of that. I'm hopeful. I'm hopeful. I mean, I'll leave it at that, right? We haven't really had guidance one way or another, so I can't really give you a percentage chance that that will happen or what that would look like. But we are pursuing, like I said, we did present on that. We are pursuing that and let our feelings be known on that. So
Thanks for doing that.
where that ends up going, I don't know. But so we are looking into those possibilities and doing our best. So
So, if we were, the restricted dollars are for bond issue?
yes,
Yeah.
it's the money that's coming in on the bond that is restricted for just use of the bond payment.
It's a special millage to pay for the
Yes.
building, right?
It pays for the building.
Correct.
Are we paying out of the bond issue? Are we paying for the
Yes.
building, or is, what I want to know
Yes,
is,
our
if
bond
we're
payments
using,
are being
if we're
paid.
using the restricted dollars to
Somebody's going to
operate
jail
the.
for that.
No, to operate the library, and they shouldn't be, is the city also paying somehow, some other pocket for the millage? Or are we paying that, basically spending it twice?
All of the millage money is going to the bond.
Okay.
If that's
I-
the answer
As
to the
per the
question.
law, I believe,
Per the,
right?
yes.
There's-
And there
there's
is a, there's a
strict
separate,
guidelines.
there's a specifically separate bank account, again, per law, that is set up that the tax revenue specifically for this is now going into, and the bond payment is coming out of that account so that it is not commingled in.
I just didn't know if we were paying for it some, I know we were paying it, I don't know if we were paying for it some other way because we're using it operationally.
No,
It was
we're,
more written.
Well, the trouble is, we
The-
were
the-
adding
the
it in
using
twice
it
and not
operationally
getting
is
it.
not-
We were spending
Trying to
it
spend it
twice.
twice. They were trying to, yes.
essentially, yes.
And not against you, I know it was a previous administration,
yeah,
a
no.
previous
I-
budget team.
I
It
get it.
wasn't you, and I don't mean to be harsh on you,
Nope.
but
I get it.
quite frankly, once again, you're stuck with the mess here with us, so.
I signed up for it, so.
Yeah.
Are you backing up, Roxanne?
So I guess the only thing I would ask the commission, based on this conversation, is as far as going forward for this budget year, like I said, we've already made some cuts, we've already made these discussions. Is there something that you guys would like to see, or something, a target number you'd want us to try to hit? Is there certain things that you would be okay with cutting? I mean, I guess I just don't know really, as far as right now, moving forward, what you would want from us as far as
Well,
going forward.
in my mind, like I said, my target is 100,000, but I would think next year 150 needs to be the absolute max in my mind. I mean, that's in
From
addition to all the
300
other
to
stuff.
100? Out of the general, you want want them to do?
Yes.
Wow.
That would pretty much gut the library's budget.
What is your total budget? I mean, you got
Well,
several $100,000. Why can everybody else operate on so much less?
I mean.
Their
this is
staffing
a
I mean,
$1
part-
million facility. I don't think there's
Yeah.
another one comparable to this in Gratiot
And
County.
I get that, but perhaps we built something we cannot no longer
But we
afford
have
to
it right
operate.
now, so we have to
Clean
do
it.
something with it.
Perhaps once we get the building paid for, we can ask for a little bit more in operating funds from the taxpayers, but are we, do you wanna go to, does everybody wanna go back to the taxpayers for a bigger operating millage for the library? I mean, if the community, again, like the roads, if everybody wants to pay for it, but it's gotta come from somewhere. Are we gonna cut police when it comes time down the road?
Well,
Are you gonna cut fire? I don't know where else this money's gonna come from. Or are we just gonna sit here and deplete the whole fund balance until there's nothing left in the piggy bank, and then what do you cut at that point? You face it now or you face it later, in my mind. It's a hard reality. There's only so much money. We have to live within our means. If this is where everybody wants to spend the money, great. But down the road, you're gonna be cutting police, or you're gonna be cutting fire, or you're gonna be cutting public works or parks, or you're not gonna mow the cemetery. I don't know what it is, but you can't keep spending more than you're taking in the day. And it's not fun, and it's not fun for me to say this, and I appreciate all the work that Lori and the library board, and, I don't know of a group that's more passionate about what they're doing. It's just dollars and cents, and we gotta make choices. I mean, if I'm wrong, tell me, and we can.
it's just your opinion,
Well,
so.
It
is my
there's several-
opinion. You're
there's
absolutely
several
right.
opinions.
But
You're
I
absolutely right.
know when you're saying we would have to cut police or we'd have to cut fire, I mean, I know we have to stay within a budget, I understand that. But I know you've mentioned that we've cut everyone else, and I struggle with not remembering the details of cutting everyone else, or what we've not done with every other department. And I guess I wonder what the suggestion is. I mean, if they can't live within their means, so what do we do with that building? What is if you're saying they can't run the library the way it is right now with the money that they have, what do we do with it?
Well, I don't think that is going to close
I
down
don't
the
know
library.
How it's not, I mean, I don't, because of that building itself is going to be an expense, whether they're 3 people or 6 people or however few people we have running that. So I don't understand how I'm not saying that we keep gutting the general fund, I get that, but I also don't, it's a bigger issue than.
I mean, to
But-
Greg's point real
Where's
quick,
the
and maybe
money
I'm
gonna
speaking,
come from?
maybe
I
I'm
know,
speaking
that's
out of
what
turn,
I'm
but
saying, if there is
to
no
Greg's
money,
point,
what do we do with it?
we do have a fund balance policy that says that we cannot dip below 50% of operations in the general fund,
Right,
50%
no,
of
I
our,
understand.
and we are gonna be, we're not there yet, but we are getting close to that, so.
Well, and there's also the
But,
question.
yeah,
I
that
don't
obviously doesn't mean it has to come
understand,
from one area or
because
something,
this
I'm just
happened
saying that.
For 2 years, I've sat at the presentations or the audits, and I don't remember this coming up. I mean, if we're saying we just found out, in December, or whatever, the 2 years, how are we not knowing these things before we're $275,000
Well,
in?
that is part of the frustration. We were
understand that.
basically lied to in the
Well,
past.
and when are you keep talking about these audit findings, I sit there, are we not getting all the information up front ever? I don't know how to do this anymore. I don't know, and I'm not, this is not a personal attack against you, Greg. I just am wondering what the suggestion is if we don't have the money to, I feel like a mechanical child's toy. I don't know how to shut it off. What is the suggestion? If we cannot afford operations, because it's going to cost, and again, I'm not a numbers person, but there's going to be a certain amount of money that's going to be required for that building, whether we're open 1 day a week or we're open 7 days a week, 6 days a week, 5 days a week, whatever. There's a certain baseline of expenses. I'd like to know what that baseline is that's going to be the expense, irregardless if we never buy another new book or never buy another computer or any of those things again. What it would cost to just have the building as is with the people. I mean, I don't know, I mean, I think we missed the boat a while ago. We are a main branch of a district library, and we can't compare the Alma Library to St. Louis or Ithaca or any of these places because they are virtually incomparable. They are not providing the same services because all those other places are able to send their people, and they do come to our library. And so there needs to be something done where we're getting, and I appreciate the presentation you made, but that has been the way for a very long time. And it's unfortunate. I don't have a suggestion, but I think there's going to be an expense. Again, like I said, whether there's 6 people and it's open 1 day a week. I mean, and I don't know what the answer is.
How long till the bonds are retired?
I think 3 fiscal years from now.
3 years from now, the bonds.
I believe
are
is what
retired.
it is. I believe we have 3 more tax years of the bond.
25.
Yes, because I think tax year 25.
Would it be okay for me to speak?
I'd be happy to get off the stage for a minute. So if they're okay with it, I'm happy to
Yeah,
turn it
please
over.
do.
Sure, Pete.
I won't go too far.
No, I'm Peter Tasha. I'm the president of the Alma Library Board. I have a great deal of respect for Curtis. I mean, I have. We've had a lot of discussion. So, just a couple things. It is true. I think we received about $225,000 last year in our millage to pay off the bond. Approximately, and it is getting paid off. I think we have 3 more years to pay it off. So we don't, I hear the words double dip, but we don't get that. That money goes into library fund balance, and it goes directly from the fund balance to the bond, and it pays it off. Inside our expenses, of course, we have the building, and it's getting depreciated. The building was worth about $3.5 to $4 million when we first got it. So every year, if you're talking about expenses, about at least $75,000, $80,000 of our expenses is just depreciation. So if we were truly of the money that supposedly we're not getting, 80,000 of that is money that is depreciation just on the building itself. So, Curtis is he believes that you should fund your capital depreciation. Makes lots of sense, especially if you're building roads, because how are you going to build more roads if you don't maintain your capital? If you have a sewer system, how are you going to build a new sewer system if you don't fund your capital? But when you're talking about depreciation for the library, it's true, we need some money for depreciation. We're buying computers, we're buying a circulation system, things like that, but those are all small dollars. They're $40,000 here, $10,000 here, whatever in a year, but we still have that $80,000 of depreciation. So truthfully, if you guys would have, if we'd actually gotten that $100,000 every year that supposedly we were spending, we'd have, after the last 17 years, we'd have $1.7 million of cash just sitting in an account for our future capital. So that'd be cool, but I don't think you'd let us keep it, because you guys would be like, hey, you got $1.7 million of cash. I'm not letting you keep that. So we had a long discussion about that. Obviously, the library has to fund capital projects, but they're going to be small over their time. We don't need $1.7 million of cash in our bank or whatever in our fund balance. We did talk about it at our last meeting about how we were, even if we take depreciation out, we were probably still underfunded, although I don't know where that money was. I don't know if the library fund ever had $500,000 of cash. Do you guys really believe that? I don't.
At one
Wha-
point I did, yes, honestly.
No,
I mean,
okay.
if you were
Okay,
told-
2 years ago, we thought it had, 2 years ago, I read the minutes of the meeting, and the commission thought we had $1.7 million of cash. But it was a building, it wasn't cash. But we had a finance director who didn't even know, and didn't even point out didn't even point out to you guys that, hey, if you guys don't fund us $175,000 this year, then you're just gonna be $175,000 in the hole, and $100,000 more last year, so we need the 275 because we had a finance director that didn't even know the difference between a building and cash. I mean, that's a huge mistake. So, and part of again, I respect Curtis a lot. If you look at, I honestly thought we only needed about 175,000 in capital to keep us balanced this year. But Curtis is really careful. He made a budget not just in the libraries department, but in all the departments. You saw last week how every department had their expenses covered more reasonably instead of just guessing and then having to come back with resolutions that said, oh, we need 100,000 here and 120 here and this and that. He made a budget that was more honest and true, not just for the library, but for all the other departments too. So obviously, public safety their budget was higher. The Public Works, their budget was higher because he actually made an honest budget. So, and that's why it was $400,000 in the hole. So I think he did a good job. So I really don't think we have cut, I think 85,000 out of our budget. We eliminated some personnel. We made a lot of cuts in operations. I don't think our patrons will notice it unless you use the services that we cut. But if we had to cut another 100,000, you would definitely notice a huge cut in services. And that's where we're at. So that's just what I wanted to say. If we really had an extra 100,000 every year that we weren't spending, I would love to, the money would be in the bank somewhere, and it's not. So, that's all. Thank you. Or I'll take any questions. I'd be happy.
No, I appreciate it, Pete, and I commend you. Your passion for the library is phenomenal. There's no question about that. And I don't enjoy doing this. I don't enjoy saying these things. I would love to give you the money. I wish we had the money to give, but we've gone from like you just heard us. A year ago, we were sitting here telling ourselves or being told we had a balanced budget. We're now sitting here $500,000 in the hole, and the year's almost over. I got to do something to make sure that doesn't happen again. It's not sustainable. Our responsibility, and we've got the responsibility, you and your patrons, but we've got responsibilities all over the city, all these departments. And if not here, where? If staff doesn't bring us the solutions, then it's going to be up to us to make the cuts for where we see it. So it's either got to come from staff to us, or top down, we'll got to give the axe to the staff and tell them where it's going to be cut from. I don't have the answers either. That's part of the problem. None of us has the answers. And I don't know if there's good answers out there anywhere.
Well, that's I will say though,
Maybe some of the services that, you can cut back on, is there any possibility that your co-libraries or your partner libraries that are nearby us, are they interested in participating in any of these services and helping you fund things?
I would.
We used to have great community recreation program in town,
Yeah.
and when that all went to wherever it went, as a kid, they used to put us all the kids in town on a bus, and we went to Canada and competed against Ingersoll, Ontario. And, when that all went to, and everything's gone to, now we've got parents that are running their own PAL program, or the police department with PAL, and parents are running athletic programs for kids. They're not as great as they used to be. I mean, nobody's going to Canada, nobody's going to that expense, but they are getting something done. Is there alternatives like that? I don't know the answers, but I think that's what we're gonna have to explore.
I
Are there
am,
alternative ways to
Yeah.
get these services that just don't take this much dollars?
I do know the other library directors, some of them pretty well. I know the finance directors of some other cities too. There's no way they would want to partner with the Alma Library right now. I mean, I wouldn't. There's no way I'd become a district library. If the city doesn't support the library, I'm like, if I were St. Louis, or if I was Ithaca, I'd say, no way, not at this time. We need to be the strength, not the weakness.
But if all we're doing is supplying their patrons so they don't have to supply those services, how do we tell the Alma taxpayer that they've got to provide these services for other cities, or that, I mean, I don't know, again, there's no good answers here, but at the end of the day, we've only got so much money.
Our kids ride the bikes to school. I'm not convinced that we are providing services to the other members of the community. They're also paying a 0.5% mill all the way through the whole county. If we lose a 0.5 mill, all the libraries in Gratiot County are in trouble. But I'm not convinced that Alma citizens aren't benefiting the most from the Alma Public Library because they can walk to it. They're right here. They're in the community. I'm sure there are some patrons who live in Sumner, live in Ashley, that come to Alma, but that's not the largest percentage of the patrons of our library. The patrons of our library are the people who live here. And they're also the people who pay the penal fines, who contribute their penal fines to the library also. So if we said, oh, people in Pine River, they can't come, Pine River supports our library. It's the way things are set up, so thank you.
Yeah, thank you, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Yes, so we do have a motion on the table to cover the $275,000 projected unrestricted net fund deficit position of the library in this fiscal year. Which, I remind everyone again, it's going to take our projected budget to a negative $500,000 for the year. So all those in favor be yes,
Yes.
any opposed to be no. I will vote in favor, so it'll be unanimous, so we will cover that deficit.
Right.
Okay,
Yeah, but,
that gets us this year.
yeah.
All right, speaking of money,
Can
appropriations.
I
next.
have one more question? With this retiring in 3 years, does this problem disappear in 3 years?
No.
No, 'cause we wouldn't-
The deficit is all from operations.
Okay.
The money that's paying for the building, it's bond money taken in,
Right.
bond money goes back out for the building.
Okay, so it's not gonna have any, that's right. I see. All right, not
Nothing
gonna
the
have any
library
effect.
did, it's
Okay.
the
All
city
right.
was actually using the
Yeah.
money
Right.
twice, if you will.
They were
The money
projecting
that
it
we-
twice.
We're
Yeah.
projecting it twice.
Thank
It
you.
wasn't
Basically,
the library management, it was
That's
us.
correct.
Yeah, okay,
They
thank you.
added it into their operating budget and never should have been part of an
Right.
operating budget. That should have been part of a capital.
This deficit will have become very apparent as soon as the debt dropped off. We caught it
Wouldn't-
Yeah.
earlier than that, but
Yeah.
that's all it would have done, because it wouldn't have changed the operational expenses, it would have just changed the revenue number and made it a very glaring hole.
Yeah, okay, thank you. I see, I get it.
Okay. Again, appropriations, next on the agenda. Anyone in favor of paying the rest of the bills?
Move to approve.
Support.
Okay, motion support, comments or questions? Hearing none, all those in favor, be yes?
Yes.
Any opposed is no. Okay, we paid the appropriations, thank you. Commissioner comments?
I've got nothing. I'm knocked off. Whatever.
Just keep on beeping, Roxanne.
Yeah, I'm just- yeah, thank you.
Okay. Roger?
Queen of Scots pageant is this Saturday. We're back to the old forum. We are at Heritage, Heritage Theater. We have 7 queen candidates and 4 wee queen candidates. An interesting thing is 2 of the queen candidates are former wee queens for the first time, which is kind of neat, so. looking forward to it.
Very good. Okay. Michelle?
Saturday morning is also Keep Alma Beautiful, spring cleanup. You can meet at the chamber office at 9, or you can just walk around town and pick up while you're before Saturday or after Saturday.
Yeah, free to do that anytime, right?
Anytime, yeah.
And soon we'll have trash cans for you to
That's
right.
deposit it into, so.
Yes, and then just remember, June 3rd is the Back to the Bricks. And if you have an old car that you'd like to, we're gonna fill the side streets with cars from the Gratiot County area, or surrounding areas, I should say. That's all.
Okay, all right, thank you, Michelle.
Mhm.
Yep,
Just an update on the ERIC evaluation. We have, the survey is done. We will be, and Eric, I think he's gonna talk to the staff. We're gonna send them a note, giving them a heads up tomorrow that's coming out Friday. Everyone, we got it Friday, and a reminder on Monday to staff. Just, we want the directors to tell their staffs that that 360 is coming. And then,
for clarity, it's not just the evaluation of Eric, it's
It's
a
a
360 of the whole
360 of the
organization.
whole
It's an organizational
yeah, organizational review.
assessment. Great, okay, sorry.
So the, and then the plan would be through the whole process, we have everything ready by May 31st. So, to move it along.
Thank you. Sarah?
Sorry, still writing.
Nothing?
No, thank you. I'm good.
Should I slow down?
No. No, thank you.
Okay. Tony?
I'm good. Thank you very much.
Eric?
Just echo Michelle's comments. Yep, this Saturday, could use your help. Come on down. 4 hours, that's all we ask, and we get a lot done. So, and then, yeah, back to the bricks. Should be a pretty fun afternoon for that also on June 3rd. So,
Do we know who the kids were who picked up along Adams Street? Somebody thanked a kid, a boy, publicly for cleaning up along Adams Street yesterday. There was some kid out there apparently just picking up stuff out there, and that person thanked him. And,
Kudos to that young person, whoever
yes,
they were.
absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
On Sunday also, sorry to jump in, I saw 2 young men save a turtle in Washington Street. I couldn't figure out why they were walking down the middle of the street, and I was like, what are they doing? And it was helping a turtle get where it needed to go.
So why did the turtle cross the road?
Right.
Okay, very good. Roger, do you have anything else, or?
No.
Is it done? Okay. I'd like to, I got a notice, Child Advocacy and the Alma Arts Center has an exhibit, I guess, a 2022 art exhibit it calls, yes. So the opening night is May 2nd from 6 to 7 p.m. at the Alma Community Arts Center. From what I understand, it's art that was done with, or by the children of our community. And I haven't seen it yet, any of it myself, but I've heard it's really, really good, which doesn't surprise me. You know, between the Strand and the Queen's Pageant and this art center and everything else going on, just always amazed at the amount of talent in this town, you know, from adult to child and everything in between. So great to hear that, and I'd urge everybody to visit the art center for that exhibit. Should be good. And Audra wasn't able to come tonight, but she did ask me also to shout out and give a thank you to the Alma College baseball team, because they went around and did the outdoor spring cleaning up at Wilcox Nonprofit Center along with the Child Advocacy properties. So shout out to the Alma College baseball team for doing that and taking care of that for our community. So wanted to pass that on. Other than that, I think that's all I have for right now. We'll invite the members of the public to address the commission. If you'd like to share your thoughts, please go to the podium, state your name and address, and I believe you have up to 5 minutes to share. Would any member of the public like to speak? We don't have many, but no? I don't see any movement, so with that, I'll take it that nobody else wants to talk, and we'll entertain a motion to adjourn for the evening. We have a motion to support. Any comments, questions? Last chance. All those in favor to adjourn? Yes. We are adjourned. Thank you very much.
Thank you.